Hi, and welcome to the Purser's Diary Part 7. My name is Martin, and in this series I'm going to talk about a diary, or rather two diaries, that were kept by my grandmother's grandparents as they sailed around the world in the 1860s on a ship called the Ida Zeigler. Their names were Charles Alfred Green, or Alfred, and Eliza Green, his wife, and this is their story. So, at the end of Part 6, the Ida Zeigler had left Plymouth in England and was sailing south through the Atlantic. The dead horse had just been heaved overboard. The extremities of life continued. In a rather garbled entry, on the 6th of August, Eliza writes,
"Still fine and very warm. The 19th, a baby died, and the 20th, one born."
Eliza's mood seems to lift briefly. She writes,
August the 9th, 1867. My dear Alfred's birthday. We had a nice cake of my own making, sent letters home by a Dutch bark. Some of the crew and passengers went on board, caused some little excitement.
On the 10th of August, Eliza writes that she does not get better of the sickness, which is likely due to her pregnancy. There is more grim news.
August the 13th, 1867. Very wet. The child died.
On the 14th of August, Eliza describes the weather as nasty, causing the ship to roll heavily and making many of the passengers sick. On approaching the equator, Eliza's tone lifts a little.
August the 16th, 1867. Neptune made his appearance and took an inventory of all his children. Most of the folk too merry to be wise. Unpleasant remarks for Al and I, for which I can't quite swallow. Passed a brig, the European, this afternoon.
Eliza does not explain what those unpleasant remarks were about. Eliza and Alfred would have had to show considerable fortitude not to let relationships on board slide into animosity. When they cross the equator, Eliza's not best pleased.
August the 17th, 1867. Crossed the line and scarcely a sober person on board. Water flying in all directions. I did not venture up for fear of baby. Alfred dreadfully put out by some of the passengers. No rest for the greater part of the night.
In his reminiscences of this voyage, Charles Alexander Mitchie describes the crossing of the line as follows.
The sailors celebrated the passage of the equator with the usual customs, taking toll of all and sundry who came within their reach. They pumped water into the large canvas sail, and when Neptune came aboard they were thoroughly in the element. Everyone whom they could catch was ducked, and no one was spared. Even the old doctor with his long flowing beard was captured and twice immersed for good measure. There were those, however, who to evade capture took to their own apartments. One man stood by his cabin door with a heavy hammer in hand, threatening anyone who tried to interfere with him or his family. Another hid under the bunk, while his wife stood guard at the door. A little Irishman, whom we called Paddy, came to my mother early in the morning and borrowed a table knife. Having got this, he stood by the mast, brandishing it and demonstrating how he could deal with anyone who tried to dip him. As soon as the sailors reached the top of the gangway hunting for him and yelling at the top of their voices, poor Paddy dropped the knife and took cover under the blankets. However, he was not spared. Having rolled himself up, they ducked him, blankets and all.
The spree continued through to the next day. A sober Alfred appears to be in the minority of the Ida's crew. Eliza records the latitude for the first time. On the 22nd of August, 16 degrees south.
August the 23rd, 1867. Fine, steady breeze. Keeps getting cooler. Wednesday, spoken the ship Simoon from San Francisco to New York.
The encounter with a United States ship has a lighter tone than Alfred's previous encounter with Just a Yankee. That ship had failed to respond to the Ida signals. It's hard to gauge Alfred's tone. Was it just a Yankee or just a Yankee? Did some grudge linger from the American Civil War, which had disrupted Atlantic trade only a few years earlier? The drama of the voyage takes on a new dimension. Eliza writes,
August the 30th, 1867. Very strong breeze and the main mast sprung. Great excitement in propping it up with spars. Sailors working all night.
Sprung means it split lengthways. The loss of a mast meant the loss of propulsion and the prolongation of the voyage, so a repair at sea was imperative. The crew used spars as splints. This running repair, whilst underway, was an epic operation of prime importance. The mainmast was the main thing that pushed them towards their destination. Charles Alexander Mitchie also records the breaking of the mainmast and the passengers manning the pumps. When the Ida Zeigler arrived in Auckland in October 1867, the New Zealand Herald ran an article giving a summary of the voyage, including this account of the storms. At 10 a.m. on the 28th of August, a fearfully heavy squall struck the ship. Sail was shortened immediately, and at 3 p.m. another very heavy sea struck the vessel, which sprang the mainmast all round immediately below the spider band. At this time, the gale had increased to a perfect hurricane, and the vessel was shipping large quantities of water. The men set to work without delay in securing the mainmast by placing the spare mainyard over end and lashing it to the afterside of the mast. Hardwood fishes were also secured around the mast, together with several stunsail booms. On the 30th and 31st of August, the weather was still very boisterous, and the ship was labouring heavily. For about a week there was a slight improvement in the weather, but when abreast of the Cape of Good Hope, another severe gale was encountered from west-southwest, with a terrific sea. At 2:30 p.m, a tremendous heavy sea struck the vessel amidships and washed away the sheep pen and 7 valuable sheep, 6 of which were owned by Captain Coop and 1 by Captain Reynolds. A portion of the port bulwarks were also stove in, and the longboat was driven considerably to leeward. From the 18th to the 25th of September, the weather still continued boisterous, and the ship during the time was straining heavily. The spider band is a metal ring carrying several eyes or lugs for the attachment of stays or for carrying belaying pins. Eliza's record keeping is not as rigorous as Alfred's, and there is a gap before her next entry.
Monday, September the 9th, 1867. Lovely weather in the last 4 days, but cold. Past the Cape during the night. Winds freshening. Every prospect of a gale. Tuesday, September the 10th, 1867. Beginning to blow and the ship to roll. Seas washing over. First day I've been able to go on deck. Wednesday, September the 11th, 1867. Gale increasing. Water plentiful everywhere and in everyone's berth. Wind right astern and the ship rolling heavily.
The gale continued. On the 13th of September, Eliza writes that a sea broke over and carried away 7 sheep, as well as stoving in the bulwarks. Mitchie recalls it as follows.
In the first storm south of the line, the ship lost all the live sheep that were carried for fresh meat. They had been kept in a large boat that was stowed above the ship's galley and covered with rope to prevent their escape. There were times when it was feared that the ship would capsize as she heeled so far over that her yard arms dipped deeply into the waves. The motion caused the sheep to be thrown about so much that they were forced overboard through the ropes.
The gale finally abates, but temperatures drop.
Sunday, September the 15th, 1867. Such a piercing cold day. Saw some icebergs and they look beautiful. Quite a task to keep warm.
Mitchie recalls a different emotion at seeing the icebergs, describing them as ugly-looking customers. On the 16th of September, the Ida again passes the Crozet Islands, but does not sight them. The wind freshens again.
September the 18th, 1867. Strong breeze. Shipping water over the sides all day. We are afloat. September the 19th, 1867. Gale still continues and we're all but washed out. Squall struck her about 4 p.m. Carried away the storm sails. Did no further damage.
Storm sails are smaller and more sturdily built than normal sails. It snowed on the 20th and 21st of September. On the 22nd and 23rd of September, Eliza got so wet that she could not get up. The writing for several entries from the 22nd of September has been written in pencil and then overwritten in ink pen. The pen follows the pencil exactly, with no attempts to correct or modify the writing. Eliza may have used a pencil because of the horribly wet conditions in her cabin, and then overwritten them with an ink pen in drier conditions. The bad weather continues.
Tuesday, September the 24th, 1867. Not much better weather. A large sea struck her and smashed into one of the stern ports and a hen coop. Thursday, September the 26th, 1867. Miserable day, rolling very much. Al hardly knows how to serve out the stores, else the sun shone very brightly the great part of the day. Friday, September the 27th, 1867. During the last night, blew a gale of wind running under close reefed topsail, rolling terribly and water plentiful. Fine day during the day, sent a strong breeze.
That's all for this episode. Please like and subscribe. May God be with you in whatever journey you find yourself on, and I hope to see you next time.